young couple at a remote road known as Lover's Lane. Murdered during an alleged affair, one of those victims, Harriet Anderson, was the wife of current Meston County Sheriff Tom Anderson. The other slain victim, Ward Lamson, is survived by his wife, Penny Lamson, who is now principal at Whitley Senior High School.
This anger, this rage that has consumed your life, let's talk about that night. You went up there just like always to watch them, the young boys, the young girls, doing what you wanted to do, what you dreamed of doing.
Guys, I don't think we should be here.
What, are you fucking kidding me, man? Nothing makes women hotter than a little danger.
Oh, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Daddy?
Maggie, is that you? Maggie?
Oh my god, Daddy, everybody is dead! Everybody is dead!
Pumpkin, where are you?
Oh, the lesbo librarian speaks.
Damn it, Daddy! Look at my face!
Don't flood it!
Michael, he's here! Get in the car! Michael!
Hi, I'm Elaine Udy from My Bloody Valentine and The Incubus, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yes, indeed, you are listening to The Hysteria Continues, and we're back with episode 308, and we're going to the right of the end. Well, to a millennium horror, I can guess. It was 1999 to 2000 for its release is Lover's Lane, the kind of post-Scream slasher, which, yes, I picked, so you can thank me for that if you've watched it, or not, perhaps. It's a case in point. I was just talking off air, I just mentioned that I used to have this on VHS, and I picked it up in New York, I think in 2001, and I watched it, and I realised I'd never seen it before. So this one was a new one for me. Again, my memory playing tricks on me. Quite often, I just presume I've seen some of these movies, and when I watched them, I realised either I was blackout drunk when I watched it, which was a possibility back then, or I'd never seen it. So I prefer to think of the latter. But yes, Lover's Lane from 1999.
Yeah, a possibility back then, of course, yeah. Like it would never happen now.
I'm sober as a judge. I'm sitting here, I've got a bottle of water in front of me, and I'm drinking a green tea. So there you are. I didn't have anything to drink last night at all, or yesterday. I'm very virtuous these days, Erik. So I don't even like to hear swearing. I'm so pure as a driven snow.
Oh, you joined me.
Well, you don't like swearing. Well, yes. Well, Lover's Lane is the main pick. But before we get on to that, we'll have a little chat about what we've been watching recently. So, Erik, how are you doing? And have you seen anything you want to tell us about?
I have seen nothing.
Get my ass, cunt.
Talking of swearing. So, okay.
You shouldn't have said that, because now it's a red rag to a bull. Now I just want to press all my sweary buttons.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I do like, I must admit, I haven't given up swearing. Sorry to disappoint Nathan. But
no, you're fine, because I've given it up too.
No, he hasn't given it up.
No, I haven't given it up.
Oh, I thought you said you have given up swearing.
No, unfortunately not. I've got a potty mouth sometimes off air, and maybe sometimes on
like you've been possessed by the devil from the 70s and 80s?
It could be. Sometimes if I stub my toe, then I can certainly turn the air blue. But Nathan, I know...
Fuck yourself!
I know you are pure as a driven snow in every conceivable way. So have you been watching anything recently, like any kind of nun movie or anything sort of, children's classic or sort of something from the Christian channel, perhaps?
Totally. I'm all about the Disney Channel. But no, I haven't seen anything, unfortunately. It's been a very hectic week with work.
Okay, well, this is going to be a short show, isn't it, perhaps? Well, let's see with Joseph. Have you seen anything you want to tell us about?
I feel like I should think of something to extend the show, but no, I've got nothing.
Well, that's okay. Well, I have actually seen something. I watched it last night on Shudder. It's the new French killer spider movie, Infested, which is very good, actually. It's definitely worth a watch. If you can, I mean, I don't mind subtitles at all. It's not a problem. I know some people don't get on with them. Yeah, so Infested is, it's a little bit like, is it Escape the Block? The UK
Attack
one with
the Block.
aliens. Attack the Block, that was it. But with this one set in a kind of a rundown housing estate in Paris, where somebody brings who collects animals like lizards and various creepy crawlies, brings back a spider who escapes, and then, as you probably guess, the whole place gets infested and it gets kind of locked down in the same way, in a similar way to the Spanish movie Wreck. So everyone gets locked inside with these spiders, and if you don't like creepy crawlies and spiders, I'm not too bad with them. Although my sister lives in Australia and they have something called the huntsman spider there, and they're about as big as a dinner plate, and they run at you and rear up on their hind legs. So that freaked me out a couple of times. But yeah, I'm not too bad with spiders. But yeah, even I was a little bit kind of taken aback with this. It's very, if you have any kind of phobia against spiders, it will hit all your buttons. But it's very well made, very well acted. Special effects are great. Yeah, definitely recommend. And it's streaming on Shudder, at least where I am anyway. So
what's this called again?
Infested.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm definitely afraid of spiders, but is it popcorny?
Yes, I would say it is. I mean, it's quite gritty as well. I mean, it's kind of very urban, sort of a kind of grittiness to it, but it is also pretty popcorny as well. I would say, especially as it gets going with the spider action. So, I mean, there's a couple of little plot holes in like quite how the spiders get so big and how so many in such a short space of time. But you kind of you forgive these things. But yeah, definitely recommend if you're kind of a fan of those kind of creature features.
Mm. Yeah, I hate spiders as well, so it'll probably work quite well on me. So I look forward to seeing that one.
Yeah, let me know. There's bits where the spiders run. They're really fast and they kind of run up and they kind of burrow into people's heads and all sorts of nice ghoulish things. So yes, okay. Well, that was a very quick recently seen, which means
wow.
We're going to be arriving in Lover's Lane perhaps a little quicker than we might have anticipated. So before I get on to it as my pick, here is a trailer for 1999's Lover's Lane.
Do you want to talk about it? This anger? This rage? Let's talk about that night. You went up there just like always, to watch them, doing what you dreamed of doing. You killed those two young people. You took that steel hook and you butchered them.
13 years ago, a brutal killer struck.
Bye-bye, Mommy.
Hey, sexy. So we on? Tonight? Fears up, clothes off.
Today is Valentine's Day, and I know you all have love on your minds. Be careful.
Hi there.
The hell do you want?
Brad and I are going up to Lover's Lane. Make sure that Michael finds us there.
Now, it looks like history
Good God.
is about to repeat itself.
Chloe. The hook's out. He went over a wall today.
Police have still failed to apprehend escaped murderer Ray Hennessy, convicted 13 years ago for the Valentine's Day slaying of a young couple on a remote road known as Lover's Lane.
This time it'll be on kids.
You think this guy's on a vendetta? That's just plain crazy.
It's on!
Where are they?
Try Lover's Lane if you can find it.
Did you hear something?
Oh, come on. Don't tell me that you're scared.
Lover's Lane.
Passions are aroused and old wounds reopened in this sassy post-Scream teen slasher based on the urban legend of The Hook. That was the beginning of the back of the Blu-ray that Arrow put out relatively recently in the last couple of years or so, of this largely forgotten post-Scream slasher, say from 1999, also released, I think, as I've Been Watching You. They're probably most notable and probably best remembered now as being the debut movie of actress Anna Faris, who the next year, or actually in 2000, I think, also went on to kind of breakout role in the Scary Movie, franchise, the first Scary Movie. I think she was in the first 2 or 3 of those.
She was in all of them, wasn't she?
Was she in all of them? Possibly.
I think so.
I mean, I haven't, to be honest, I think I was mentioned on the podcast before, I saw the first Scary Movie at the cinema, and I didn't watch any of the others, so
you were mortified, weren't you?
I was mortified. And having said that,
Nathan, you better pick it soon.
I'd be interested in rewatching it at some point. It's kind of although I suspect it's probably not a movie that's aged well. But Lover's Lane was obviously one of those films that came about because of the success of Scream in 1996. As ever with Arrow, when they do, they kind of give these slasher movies some love. There's some great special features on there, and obviously talk a lot more about background as we go. But one of the tidbits from the writers of Lover's Lane was originally it was written as a kind of postmodern, quippy, kind of comedic slasher movie, and it went through many rewrites and came out as something. It retained some of that kind of punny nature, but it was more kind of straight ahead kind of slasher movie. So I say it's a movie that I picked up on VHS in New York in the early 2000s, and I just presumed I'd seen it because it is on Hysteria Lives, and a friend of the show, Jake Helgren, reviewed it way back when. So I just presumed I'd seen it, and I have no recollection. I just didn't remember when I watched the Blu-ray, which of course, being Arrow, it looks fantastic, even though it is a relatively low-budget movie. I think it's made for about $500,000. So Lover's Lane has a great premise, and I do love the kind of twisted twists in it towards the end of it. It's also blessed with some great camera work for such a low-budget movie. Shot on 35mm, so it kind of looks okay. It's just, for me, it's just not the most exciting slash movie. Considering it was written by 2 writers who've probably gone on to better things, I don't know, but considering this went through 14 rewrites, it either had too many rewrites, it kind of lost its kind of zip, I kind of guess. Most of the characters are kind of underdeveloped, even for a teen slasher. And it's not a bad movie. It's not terrible, but I just found I wasn't engaged with it. And the fact is, it's one of those movies that you get with a killer who has kind of zero threat. I kind of get zero menace. You have this hook-handed killer, which of course probably was inspired by the success of I Know What You Did Last Summer, the fisherman in that movie. And of course, Lover's Lane is is inspired by the legend of Lover's Lane, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And perhaps more interestingly for me, actually talking about the 1981 movie from Cannon Studios that was due to come out in the height of the slasher movie, which never did. But there's an interesting story about that, which I'm sure we'll get to. And again, it has been the basis for all sorts of movies, from The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It was used in He Knows You're Alone and Final Exam, the beginning of those movies. So the Lover's Lane has got the idea of a killer stalking Lover's Lane is, it's got the urban legend written all over it. Everything, it's a great premise. It's just the middle of the movie is not as engaging. There's very little suspense in it. The twist, which obviously we will spoil going forward, and I kind of guess, as ever, if you've not seen the movie, then I'd urge you, if you can put yourself through it, to go back and watch it before you listen to us talk about it. But the twist is, and what the writers wanted to do was, and it's admittedly a clever twist, is to have the hook, the killer who's been locked away since these 2 murders 13 years earlier on Valentine's Day. Of course, another nod towards another famous slash movie, hence the intro by Helen Moody. Is that the hook is not the killer. The killer is actually the head of the asylum where the hook has been locked away, and his teenage daughter. And I'm interested to try and work out, and with you guys to piece together exactly what the fuck that was all about and what was going on there. So overall, for me, it's not a terrible movie. There's some good things in it. There's some, fun performances. Anna Faris looks, I think you could tell that she's going to have a future ahead of her. Some of its limitations shine through. Some of the scenes are even a little bit too overdark, even with this kind of Arrow restoration. But yeah, when we're talking about late 90s slashers, I mean, give me kind of a Schools Out or a number of other movies over this one. But, I'm glad we took a trip down Lover's Lane. I just wish I loved it a little bit more. But Erik, what are your views on Lover's Lane?
Yeah, this was a first-time watch for me, and this definitely was a first-time watch. I'd never seen it before. Expectations were low, I suppose, for a straight-to-DVD slasher movie. But, I mean, I'd probably been the most forgiving to I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer when we covered that last year. And I thought Shredder was pretty okay. And this one, like you said, I thought it was perfectly watchable without being in any way remarkable. I don't think it would be a film I'd ever return to. It offers nothing new. It's borrowing heavily, as you said, from I Know What You Did Last Summer in terms of the killer. It also mixes in sort of Scream, and then it has the prom night element of the escaped mental patient who turns out to be a red herring. And even like there's an element of Halloween with Jack as that kind of Dr. Loomis character. But I mean, like, it starts off pretty well. Like it promises to be a decent paint by numbers slasher movie at the start. But when it comes to sort of paint by numbers slasher movies, I prefer them to be in the mold of the early 80s ones rather than these post-Scream ones. Because for me, one of the problems of films of this era is that there's so little imagination to the killings. Now, in something like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Urban Legend, the movie is so fun and has interesting characters in that they kind of get away with that. When you've got characters who are so incredibly bland, like in Lover's Lane, it really could do with some Tom Savini style gore effects to liven things up a bit. There's no even something gore light like Jason Lives or Jason Takes Manhattan. There's still a bit of fun to be had in the inventive ways Jason kills people. In this, you don't get any of that. So yeah, I found the characters all kind of bland. I mean, again, I'm astounded at how dated the sort of turn of the millennium fashions look nowadays, because it doesn't seem like it's that long ago. But everyone in this either looks like they're a member of Backstreet Boys or Blink-182, and it has that, I suppose this is kind of a fun element, it had that cliched view of what an outsider looks like in Hollywood terms, which is, a Sports Illustrated teen model who just happens to wear glasses. And that's what makes her mousy. I did love how in the opening scene, I loved how the sheriff reacted when he found his dead wife. It was quite hilarious. I don't know, it's Amdram at its finest. I did love
you
the
like
scene.
his? Sorry, Erik. I was going to, while you mention that, did you enjoy his moustache, which surely was the best fake moustache since Sleepaway Camp? Yeah,
Sleepaway Camp was in my notes for that moustache. I was like, even before I'd seen the rest of the film, I was like, that is not a real moustache. Yeah, and I liked the scene where that drunk girl in the bowling alley gets a smack in the mouth from the school principal. I thought that was kind of fun. The mystery element is minimal. It kind of telegraphs where it's going on a few occasions, although there is one twist at the end, and I think you were hinting at it, Justin. That's like, what the fuck? That we'll discuss, I'm sure. But I mean, one of the key giveaways for me is when a prominent character who you think is going to get a spectacular demise is killed off screen. Alarm bells start ringing going, maybe that person isn't really dead. So yeah, the mystery element didn't really work, but I mean, it was breezy enough. And I wasn't surprised actually to find out that some of the folk behind this went on to make Shredder. I thought Shredder was a much better straight to video slasher. This one, cookie cutter, which is fine, but it just could have done with a bit more kick to the death scenes or the chase scenes, because as you said, it was kind of suspenseless in that. The film lacks a really good hook.
Oh dear.
So I'm afraid it's a bit more Lover's Lame than Lover's Lane.
Oh, Erik. You haven't even got to. Is that in lieu of your joke of the week?
No, that's an addition, you lucky things.
Well, thank you, Erik. I'm interested to hear, actually, because I kind of got a feeling that Joseph may be the more on the nay side. So I'm interested to hear if Nathan is going to rally to Lover's Lane.
I'm going to rally a little, but unfortunately, it didn't hold up for me as well as I hoped it would, because I remember this was one of the, post-Scream slashers that I thought was really good, back in the day. I thought that it was great. I haven't seen it since then. And I watched it recently, and I'm like, it's sort of like you guys said, it's not a bad movie, in my opinion. I think that there's a lot of competence here. Like behind the camera and everything, they've got some talent. But the problem is, like you said, it's very void of any, like suspense or good kills or, anything like that. It just feels like about the middle section of the movie, it kind of meanders. I love Anna Faris, but and it's not really their fault because, she wasn't famous at this point in time, but she's very good at comedy. And I just felt like in this movie, she's not really given much to do except stand around and look scared. That's really all they have, to give her. And her death scene was kind of weird too. She's just kind of sitting on this bed and the hook is coming out from the bed. And I'm like, it seems like it should be a better death scene than it actually is. I would say. I did love the scene where they go to I think it's the bowling alley to look, and one of the girls is drunk there, and the principal punches her in the face, which I thought was probably a no-no in general, but, it was a funny scene.
She could get suspended for that.
I know, she could get in big trouble. But yeah, it was one of those situations where, I found myself liking the movie, but wishing that they had done some stuff differently. I think the ending, even though the mystery is pretty easy to figure out, even for me, I still love the ending. I thought it was so over the top and ridiculous. But, that character was over the top and from the get-go. When we're first introduced to her, she's like doing this power walk down the school hallways and, basically throwing herself and her ex-boyfriend in swimming pools. So, that was something as well. I thought she was, kind of entertaining to watch because she seemed really crazy and everything. I do love the idea of a hook handy killer at Lover's Lane. It's that old urban legend, which, I think is great. But it's kind of like what Erik was saying. I think that doing something with these death scenes, like Tom Savini, having death scenes, similar to his, or, just kind of going more out there with the death scenes would kind of help lift the, kind of the pacing of it, which was a little off. And then, a lot of times movies that are badly paced, can also have these crazy great death scenes that kind of keep you intrigued. And unfortunately, Lover's Lane, like you said, the death scenes just aren't, I don't know, they're nothing memorable, unfortunately. But, all that being said, I still like Lover's Lane. I still had fun and enjoyed it. It's definitely not a perfect film whatsoever, but, I think there's enough here to enjoy it and, get some laughs and, and see Anna Faris, in a serious role before she became popular with Scary Movie series. So, yeah, I would give it thumbs up.
Okay, well, I'm glad there's a cheerleader, and especially appropriate with Anna Faris's character being gutted. She said, I think, did read somewhere, she said her first movie she was gutted as a cheerleader. So I don't know if there was maybe some gore in it at some point, but we didn't see that, obviously. But Joseph, was this your first time with Lover's Lane?
No, I saw it on video right when it came out back in late 99 or early 2000. The actual release date on Lover's Lane is kind of vague, but this was actually better than I remembered, though I think I laughed at it more than I did with it. There's a handful of like real howlers here, like the opening scene with the couple having sex in the car, And after they're attacked by the hook-handed killer, the dude forgets to pull up his trousers as he's trying to escape. So he keeps tripping over himself as he's running away. I got a kick out of that. I also loved the 90s fashions, which, to me, at least, are far more hideous than anything the 80s ever foisted upon us. The lead character of Michael in particular, he looks like a bloated Devon Sawa who dresses exactly like Chandler Bing from Friends. And they really want you to know that Anna Faris is playing a cheerleader because she's the only character here in the movie who never changes her clothes. I think everyone has like 2 or 3 outfits, but she stays in her cheerleading outfit from the beginning to the end. And how many teen characters were there exactly? I mean, I seriously lost count. Several of the guy characters look identical to one another, and the girls really fare no better, as they're only kind of discernible by their stock personality traits. And I actually kind of liked all of them regardless, at least maybe because of what they do rather than who they are. Like Michael, for example, has to be the absolute worst at sneaking out of his house at night. I mean, you'd think he'd have to be old enough to have seen something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off to get pointers on sneaking out of the house. But he's terrible at it because, for good measure, he leaves the window wide ass open for his mother to see. I mean, she just walks right in the room and the window's open, so it's obviously he's just left. I also like late in the film when Anna Faris and the kid with the shattered leg are hiding from the killer behind the sofa. And for extra camouflage, they're just also hiding underneath this bed sheet and making no attempt at being quiet whatsoever. The plot is really convoluted. It has not one, not two, but 3 killers, 2 of which are working in tandem, and the third is out there kind of doing his or her own thing. More spoilers on that forthcoming. One of the killer's identities is it's easily sus by the sheer fact that it's a semi-familiar face who is in darn near 100 episodes of a famous sitcom from the 70s, and so he has no real reason for being here other than to turn out to be the killer.
Oh, I didn't recognize him.
Oh, he was in a WKRP from Cincinnati.
Okay.
Yeah, the other is easily spottable because he was already a killer, and the third, for me, was actually a complete surprise because of who it was, and that was the character of Chloe, as Justin had said. She's the bitch character, and she absolutely steals this movie out from underneath everyone. I mean, her role here is like, I don't know, I just loved watching her. I loved her dialogue and just her snootiness. It's just great. I should have picked up on her off-screen death, as it were, like you said, Eric, but I was so focused on that, that quote-unquote big name in the cast that I just didn't really think about her being a killer. I just thought maybe her death scene was just lazy. But, her as a killer was very surprising to me. I'm so glad they made her turn out to be a killer because the snotty girl is rarely, if ever, the killer in slasher films. So for me, it was a very welcome surprise. And, as I said, her character is just so great to watch. So, yeah, I actually liked a lot of little things here. And the film does, kind of spring to life, maybe cheaply during the finale in the farmhouse, where it seems like every single character at one point is in possession of a hook, because why not? I don't necessarily think it fully works as a slasher film. Unlike you, Justin, I thought the cinematography was kind of flat, and I think the beats are, right where you'd expect them to be, including a cat scare on a staircase. So there's no real surprises, but it's a slasher film. Not a lot of them are surprising. So I think I will recommend it regardless of my nitpicks. It's not by a wide margin or anything, but you could do a lot worse for a late 90s direct-to-video slasher. I mean, I think it's just kind of stupid in just the right kind of way. And, that's okay in my book. So a marginal recommendation from me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm surprised only because of some of your comments on.
I was trying to throw you off the track there.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad we found some differing opinions on Lover's Lane. But going to that ending, the reveal of the killer, because for me, I think I found the killer a bit plodding. There wasn't much menace. Considering there was obviously 3 killers. So I'm right in thinking, tell me if I'm wrong on this, that obviously you've got the hook-handed killer, Ray, who's the one who gets locked away, and he did kill the couple at the beginning. who are the kind of the wife of the police, the sheriff, and of the husband, the principal, are having an affair, and he kills them in Lover's Lane.
I got the impression that was the doctor that killed them.
Was it? But what was Ray doing there, and why did he have no hand?
Yeah, my assumption was that Ray killed the couple in the beginning, and then he killed Chloe at the end. So he was, technically still a killer, and he got them Michael and was it Mandy? I think her name was Mandy. He got them in the car at the end, so he's probably going to do something nefarious to them as well. But so he was still a killer, but he wasn't like the actual killer.
Oh, well, see, what I got from the movie was that the doctor, what's the doctor's name? Jack is his first name. Anyway.
Yeah.
I got the impression that Jack, because he was obsessed with Mandy's mother, killed the mother and her boyfriend in the car, and then used one of his mental patients to pin it on.
He maybe, because there was that scene where he's in the basement and he's basically trying to drill into this poor guy's head that maybe he was the killer. Maybe you're right. I don't know, but I thought maybe he did kill. I don't know. I
might need to watch it again, but I thought there was a bit of a sort of a throwaway line of dialogue towards the end that sort of hinted at that, but maybe I'm wrong.
He did say that he was obsessed with the woman who died, but again, it just seemed a little bit too convenient that if he was the hook-handed killer and he killed them, that then he fingered, for want of a better term, a man with no hand with a hook. Do you know what I mean? It just seems a little bit far-fetched.
How do you do that?
Sorry?
How do you do that? Finger a man with no hand?
Well, quite easily, I imagine. But then...
Oh, man, if you had no hand, that's what I meant.
Oh, well, if I had no hand, it'd be more difficult. But and you certainly wouldn't want to do it with a hook. But moving on to then, so presumably there's books, isn't there, about like abnormal father-daughter relationships in his office, in the asylum. So
and his daughter's panties are beside his bed and stuff. And
so we're led to think there's some kind of weird incestuous relationship going on, but she's also insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're both insane together.
It's all very convoluted.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that twist, but then the movie ends with Ray, the hook-handed killer, who may not have been the killer in the first place, but became a killer, driving off with the surviving teenagers, which I do love. I do. There's something to be said for those kind of movies that ends with someone driving off, which probably was inspired by the end of Nightmare on Elm Street. But you've got it in Happy Hell Night, haven't you, where the killer drives off the ambulance.
Yeah, whether or not he actually killed the couple in the beginning, I guess that's up for debate. But he obviously killed Chloe, so technically, yeah, he is a killer.
Mm-hmm. But he just randomly came back to Lover's Lane.
Yeah, it's all very convenient.
It's all very convenient. But then, hey, the slasher movies, we're not we're not talking about realism. So I prefer it to be more outlandish and ridiculous.
Absolutely.
It is the better anyway, so it's not a criticism, but it is when you start trying to piece it together, it kind of does sort of perhaps fall apart if you try and be logical with it. But so Chloe wanted to kill her friends because her ex-boyfriend dumped her.
She says something like, I agreed to help you as long as you get rid of my stupid ex-boyfriend and I guess the girl he likes.
Right.
I mean, why? I mean, what a motive. I mean, it's like, couldn't you just break up with him? He was going to break up with her to begin with anyway. Couldn't she just let bygones be bygones that way? Did she have to go out killing everybody?
And why was the doctor killing people?
Why do killers kill anyone in these movies?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very convoluted.
For love.
For love, yes.
I love, because you played it in the intro, the news report about it, like, talk about giving away a ton of information. It was like, this couple died, and this was the wife of so-and-so, who is the sheriff, and this is it's like, it's exposition radio.
Well, it is kind of info dump radio, infodump.fm, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
I think it was kind of, I don't know. I found the idea of Mandy, like the kind of, she was a kind of studious girl with the glasses, and she kind of has a bit of pep towards the end of the movie, but she's so kind of miserable, isn't she? It's supposed to be this kind of leading up to being the final girl, which she essentially is. But she's not, the actress isn't really given much to do with it, apart from she ends up screaming quite a lot towards the end of the movie. But Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was kind of. It's funny to fun to pick it apart. And again, it's not the worst movie. Certainly, it's not. Do you want to know a secret? Which will be interesting to cover at some point.
Oh no, I protest.
What, saying not to cover it?
Yeah. Do you want to know a secret? Here's a secret. No.
But isn't that kind of widely regarded as the worst 90s slasher movie?
Well, I don't know. It could be, but it does pop up in my background on this film. Actually, kind of weird that you mention it.
Okay. Well, we'd be Anyway, we'll try not to. Although, when was Axum out?
2000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually filmed in 1992, but it was 2000.
Right.
2002 or something like that. I can't remember.
Well, I'm sure we'll get around to that eventually. But yeah. So anything left to say on Lovers Lane before we kind of go into some background?
I think it's kind of funny that out of all four of us, maybe I liked it more than you guys did, which is kind of a swap. But yeah, it's very vanilla, very cookie, very safe cookie cutter, but it's also very convoluted and silly. So I think you could have some fun with it if you're in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It's for me. It was funny that hearing the writers discussing it and saying how it kind of started out directly as a kind of inspired, putting it kindly, by Scream and successor Scream, and how they kind of turned it more into a kind of a straight ahead slash movie. So because if this was filmed in 1999, which I think it was, I know it's conceived in 1997, so kind of probably after Scream and probably around the same time as Know You Did Last Summer. And I'm going to guess actually I Know What You Did Last Summer was not, even the year after Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer was pretty much a straight ahead slasher movie, wasn't it? You didn't have that film doesn't do that kind of postmodern quipping that something like films like Valentine and Urban Legend do. So especially Urban Legend. So it's kind of interesting that the thing. But then of course you got the yin and yang of Lovers Lane, and then Scary Movie, which takes it into completely different direction. So yeah. So, well, some background. Joseph, you said you had some things for us in the connection to some other 90s slasher movies.
Yeah, just a few bits and pieces. The release date is kind of vague. If you go by the internet, it's kind of vague because the VHS, I am almost positive, came out in 1999, but the Internet Movie Database and Wikipedia and all the usual spots say that it premiered in February of 2000. And I could be misremembering. Maybe that's right. But I could have sworn that VHS came out in the 90s, but I don't really know. I also looked into some of the AKAs for the film. The first being I'm Still Waiting for You, which, despite the similar title to I've Been Waiting for You, is not a sequel or of any relation to the TV slasher from 1998 whatsoever. I looked and tried to find a connection, but I think maybe it was just a big coincidence. It was released to DVD in some territories as Lover's Road for the simple fact that the word lane had no connotation to the word road or any meaning whatsoever in that whatever language it was released in. So it kind of more or less lost that Lover's Lane kind of urban legend mystique thing going on in it. It kind of got lost in translation there as Lover's Road. It was produced by DEJ Productions, and if you're not familiar with their output, they released over 200 movies and some really heavy slasher movie shitters in the early aughts, including Do You Want to Know a Secret and Miner's Massacre, which is also terrible. And they were basically this subsidiary of Blockbuster Entertainment, and Blockbuster basically used DEJ Productions to kind of acquire and release a lot of these like-minded low-budgeters exclusively through Blockbuster stores. And they had kind of, they ran this course for a while, and they nearly tipped over into kind of big time when they acquired the Sly Stallone slasher Detox after Universal Pictures had declined to release it theatrically. So they retitled it to ICU and released it quietly to cinemas, but then it bombed, and so then it went straight to DVD thereafter. So they were still kind of in the middle of the road as a production company, and they went defunct in 2006 when Blockbuster Video basically first began to see trouble with, Netflix coming onto the scene. But they did kind of go out with a bang commercially, after they acquired and released 2 Oscar winners, which were Monster from 2003 with Charlize Theron, and then Crash from 2004, that ensemble directed by Paul Haggis. So, humble beginnings to a, I guess, somewhat dignified death for DEJ Productions. And it was co-written by Jeff Miller, with one F, who penned Deep Star 6 from 1989, which was kind of cool. I didn't know that. And he also penned House 4 from 1992, and also from Eric's glorious box set that he totally got in the mail on time. and that's all I really have on the film.
Excellent.
Not even on time. I never got it. I had to go out and buy it.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not still going on about it. So, Eric, do you have anything for us?
Yes, I had to listen to the commentary track of Lover's Lane. I just picked up a few things from it because it sort of meandered a bit. But the opening scene of it was supposed to be set in a psychiatric hospital, but they didn't have the funds, obviously, to do that, and they needed to do an elaborate helicopter shot on the psychiatric hospital. But as they had a budget of $500,000 for the entire film, they axed that idea and went with the sort of smooching lovers up on Lover's Lane. The woman in the opening, the one who's having sex in the car, they mentioned this on the commentary track. I didn't catch her name, but she grew up in Egypt and she was kidnapped twice by a religious cult who thought she was some kind of goddess because she had orange hair. And then sort of she moved to the States and became a horror movie bit player. The woman who plays Mandy also plays her mother in the opening sequence. And they also mentioned on the commentary track that this came perilously close to getting a theatrical release, kind of a limited one. I don't think it was going to be sort of 2,000 theatres across the States. It might have been like a couple of hundred maybe. But the company backed out of releasing it theatrically because they felt it wasn't gory enough and probably didn't have the commercial bite maybe of some of the other films of its type. And that's all the background I have. Over to you, Nathan.
Wow. Well, I was going to say, just before I get to Nathan, saying, a ginger-haired woman being kidnapped, it just gives us all hope, doesn't it?
How rude. I know what you're insinuating there.
You could call the FBI on him. He's like plotting a kidnapping here.
He is plotting a kidnapping.
Yeah, I'm not from Egypt, though. So
Poor Tia.
But what? No, that's in
Toya, I mean.
Tia, yeah. But that was some interesting background. I say I do have the Blu-ray. I didn't have a chance to listen to the commentary, although I did listen to there's a making of kind of on there, which they do interviewed quite extensively on there. But Nathan, what do you have for us?
No.
You what? No, everything they just read, I had exactly written down. None of that this week, Nathan?
Well, ironically, the actress playing the 2 different roles, like, I actually did have that, but Erik got that one.
I stole it from you, like a thieving whore.
Well, thank you, Nathan, anyway. But I've got a few bits before I just talk a little bit about the other Lover's Lane that never was, but I thought it's curious that the film was shot on 35mm. Although to me it looked so grainy that it looked more like 16mm, but it kind of, anyway, they said it was 35mm, but the writer said that it was, they made the movie because in a time-honoured tradition of people were trying to break into movies, looking for a commercial project, and horror was hip at the time, so that's why they went for it, although I think they did have some kind of affinity with the genre. But they said that for some reason, I don't know if this is true or not, but they said that Blockbuster wouldn't release a movie unless it was shot on 35mm, which I find odd. Surely Blockbuster back then must have been putting out shot on video stuff as well.
Blockbuster, they released Axum. So
wait a minute. Yeah. Not only Axum, they released like Faders, they released several Polonia Brothers movies, and those are definitely not 35mm.
That movie you love, Nathan, was it Terror Tunes? I think it was a Blockbuster.
No, I didn't love Terror Tunes. I love Evil Tunes.
Oh, good. I'm so glad Terror Tunes is not a slasher movie.
I think we're all glad about that. But so it was odd that it didn't get, for me, it feels like it was made for a theatrical release that never happened. But Anna Faris was I've seen sort of various things. She wrote a book called, is it Unqualified or something like that, kind of autobiography, where she mentions Lover's Lane very, very briefly. And I think she was, because it was shot in Washington, and I think she is a Seattle native, and I think she just finished university and she got the role in this. She was she was actually auditioning for the role of the woman with the red hair got kidnapped in Egypt at the beginning with the boobies out. So whether or not that would have happened, but anyway, she got the slightly bigger role. And she said, "Oh, my first role was I was dressed. She's basically said it was terrible, and I was dressed as a cheerleader and got gutted." But then apparently she backpedaled and said it wasn't that bad. But one thing I did find, she met and married one of the other cast members for a few years before she got divorced. But she claimed in one article I saw that the producers ran out of money halfway through, which I haven't seen any elaboration on, but that's what it's claimed. So she doesn't really mention it. And obviously, she went on to kind of relative superstardom with the Scary Movie franchise kind of very quickly after this.
And she's also in the last season of Friends, a recurring character. Right,
okay. Yeah, so she went, this was kind of pretty quickly forgotten in her wake. So I was going to talk a little bit. I mean, obviously the whole Lover's Lane thing is kind of it's up to debate really where the whole idea of the hook and Lover's Lane comes from. But it's one of the urban legends, which is kind of featured in Urban Legends, isn't it? Just as a throwaway moment in the book on Urban Legends, I think. But I was looking into it, and they said that it goes right back to, there was a serial killer called Charles Barr who targeted lovers and a Lover's Lane in Memphis in Tennessee in the early 1920s. And there was another, I guess it's really because in Lover's Lane you are out in the middle of nowhere, doing things. And so you're kind of much more vulnerable, I can guess. So yeah, there is the urban legend of that. But for me, more interestingly, and it's kind of on Hysteria Lives, I've got a section called Lost Slashers. And I came across an article, well, not an article, there was in Box Office Magazine and Variety Magazine, used to be common practice, and possibly still is, for people to try and drum up money for projects by putting adverts. I mean, there's so many of these movies that never made. I think it's Marimba by Wes Craven. There's lots of these movies that they have these great artworks, and sometimes they never happen just purely because they don't attract backing, or there could be a million reasons why they don't happen. But Canon Films, who at the time were making money on with slashers in the early 80s, obviously Schizoid with Klaus Kinski actually made quite a lot of money. There was New Year's Evil, also Hospital Massacre, X-Ray. So around that time, they were advertising a film called Lover's Lane, and the artwork has a man in fedora holding a knife, oversized, looming over a couple of lovers in a car. And it was meant to star Wayne Newton, who, to me and probably Erik, we wouldn't really know. I didn't know until I looked into it. Is Wayne Newton, was he a household name?
Yeah, he was a big-time, Vegas crooner type.
Yeah.
Like Frank Sinatra, more of the late 70s, early 80s type, whereas Sinatra's the 50s and 60s, I guess. But he was that type, very famous in Vegas. I think he still is, if he's still alive. I don't know, but yeah, he's a very, very, very famous name over here.
Yeah, that's what I kind of read. I sort of kind of Mr. Las Vegas. So, I mean, he's not a name, not a household name here, Erik, is he? He's not someone who's kind of crossed over.
No, I would only know him from, I think he's in License to Kill, the Bond movie from 1989.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there'd been like a bit of a thing with slasher movies and rock stars or aging rock stars. Obviously, Frankie Avalon was kind of chased after Donna Wilkes with his flute and a hatchet in Bloodsong a couple of years later. And there was Jack Jones, who was in Pete Walker's The Comeback. And
wasn't Tiny Tim also in a slasher?
He was. Blood Harvest.
Blood Harvest, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And even David Bowie was up for the role of the killer in Haunted House of Horror, which is another Frankie Avalon slasher movie from the protest slasher from the late 60s, which is definitely worth a look. And there was all the rumours of Liberace being in a slasher movie as well, which he sued over. And talking of suing, obviously I'll just be very careful what I say here, but the reason it kept on being bumped backwards. And the reason for it was that Wayne Newton got embroiled in a legal case to do with corruption, which he was found completely innocent of, and he went on to sue various people. But but apparently the people who were behind, the money men behind putting up the money for Cannon Films' Lover's Lane, obviously didn't mind the idea of pumping money into a film where ladies' bras ping off and they get chased by someone with a knife in Lover's Lane, but they were worried about putting their money in if there was a corruption charge. So by the time that was all kind of sorted, essentially the slasher movie bandwagon had kind of rolled out of town in the early 80s, and so Lover's Lane with Wayne Newton never happened. But it would have been interesting, especially as a Cannon production. You could just imagine, if you kind of think Schizoid's not great, but certainly New Year's Eve and Hospital Massacre is incredibly cheesy, and I imagine Lover's Lane with Wayne Newton would have been more along the lines of something like X-Ray. So, a lost slasher, unfortunately.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if maybe that became this Lover's Lane in any way whatsoever, but it doesn't really sound like it.
No, I don't think so. I found there was a script that was registered in 1981 under the title Lover's Lane, but whether or not it was connected to Cannon, I don't know. See, I don't even know if they got as far as the script. It's kind of. I kind of got the feeling that they were kind of put these feelers out there for these films and to see if there was an interest in them and get the money to make them, and then rush out a script, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not sure how far they got with them, but it never happened. So unfortunately. So what was the kind of consensus on the group, Joseph?
18 comments overall for Lover's Lane. The top 2 begins with a True Neutral from Instagram who says, I find it charming how this film drags 90s post-screen slasher tropes like multiple killers and a quote-unquote sins of the father motive back into a very knucklehead 80s vibe and look. And Austin Stenberg writes, a steaming turd of a film. Anna Faris's first film, but there's a good case to be made that it should have been her last. Riffs on a handful of better slashers and has nothing original or inspiring to offer. They should have made this with Wayne Newton in the 80s as was originally intended. So that's kind of I wonder if that was connected in any way, but we don't know. I have to imagine it would have been better than this dumpster fire. That being said, I still kind of want to rewatch it. LOL. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on all that we're doing. Listen on Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and about a zillion other podcatchers, both good and terrible. Join us on Patreon for as little as $1 per month to help support the show, or if you're financially inclined, select a tier that fits your budget for that extra monthly bonus content. That's patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues, all one word. And that goes for our email address as well, thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com. Justin Wayne Newton Kurzweil, over to you.
Well, thank you. So from Lover's Lane to Lover's Pain, here's Eric's Joke of the Week.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
What demographic enjoyed Lover's Lane the most? Hookers. Hookers. Hookers.
Is that a demographic?
It is. For the purposes of joke, it is.
I always love the car accident sound effect. I think Justin actually was in that car.
Well, as jokes go, Eric, that was a cul-de-sac, so thank you. So we have
that was good.
We have some feedback, don't we? I believe. So who would should we go in the order we have them? Which I think Eric first.
Yes, I am first, and this is from Alfonso. Not that one, I'm assuming.
Not from Alice Sweet Alice.
Yeah,
your boyfriend.
He's not my
Eric
boyfriend.
said, not that one. So I'm going to insert a crying sound effect.
No, I don't like Alfonso from Alice Sweet Alice. I like this Alfonso though, although he says something in the middle of this email that will upset us both, Justin. Hi there, it's a bit tough not to call you friends since I listen to a lot of your pod and I'm feeling like I'm part of the gang by standing silent in the shadows. However, that is my problem. I'm very happy every time there's a new episode and I always have a smile afterwards. Unless Erik's jokes are too bad, of course. Then they should be named Joke of the Week, as in WEAK. Yeah, well, you might laugh.
That was funny.
No, but wait till you hear this. Toya and Susie are both special, but not really good. I prefer my house god Devon Townsend because he is just the best around. Canadian genius that I know at least Joseph might like. Do you, Joseph?
Yes, he's my favorite musician, actually.
I heard you play the song Ants by Devi, but maybe that was just by accident.
That was no accident.
No. My story of horror began by accident, actually. My mother was taking me to the cinema to see The China Syndrome at the local very small cinema. I noticed that there were not posters outside of that movie, but Mom was stressed because we arrived a bit late, so she bought 2 tickets and we entered the paradise of movies. After the commercials, tradition here, there was, Mom thought, a trailer for an upcoming movie. After about 10 minutes, my mother understood we had gone to see the wrong film, but it was too late. I was hooked, scared but hooked. We saw Jaws. I was scared and shaken but happy and was almost flying afterwards. I was 12 but remember it as clear as if it had been today. Maybe a positive trauma. Hee hee hee. Since then, I have explored the world of horror as much as I have been able to, living a bit on the countryside in Sweden. Congratulations on the Eurovision last night, by the way, Sweden. I know you didn't win, but you hosted it. And Ireland did quite well for once. Anyway, I divulge.
Is that soccer?
Eurovision, no, it's song contest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The movie censors cut movies to small pieces during the 1980s and we hated them for it. So we imported and bought illegal copies from ads. Quality sucked badly, but at least we could see the movies. Well, that was the same for me, Alfonso, in Ireland, and probably the same in the UK for you, Justin, in the 80s, relying on...
Yeah, definitely. Lots of bootlegs floating around.
Rubbishy bootlegs, yeah. Attached to this mail is a small musical gift. Hope you like it, especially made for you. Just having fun with music and so on. Don't be scared, it won't bite too much. Cheers, take care and have a great time. Best regards, Alfonso.
Yes, and this is the little musical interlude.
Oh, and this slaps so much. I love it.
Alfonso sent, and I think you will enjoy this hopefully as much as we do.
Hey, turn her on that podcast. Your life may depend on it. Justin, Erik, Nathan, and Joseph. Tell us what to do.
When the killer is behind you, your heartbeat racing fast, and the fear will start to blind you. Let's hope the script says you're the last.
Well, thank you,
I
Alfonso.
love it.
Yes, fantastic.
Yes. I can picture that being performed in New Year's Evil. It has kind of that new wave type vibe to it.
Which is why I'm surprised that Alfonso wasn't keen on Toya or Susie, considering he had the 80s new wave thing nailed down there.
Yeah. Unless there's something lost in translation and he actually means they're absolutely brilliant.
Or at least one of them.
Yeah, Toya.
He's got a definite Cure type vocals range there. I love that song. Thank you for sending that to us. That's awesome.
Yes, that's one of the best messages we've ever had, Alfonso, so thank you. And not to put down anyone else, because we've got 2 more messages, and so I'll get straight on to the next one. This one starts with, Dear Hysterians, I have been a steadfast listener to the podcast since the early stages of the pandemic and have never before been moved to write in. However, following a recent puzzling exchange with ChatGPT, I feel compelled to get in touch and see what you make of my story. The other day I was idly experimenting with the aforementioned AI tool, asking it different questions to gauge how informed and accurate it is. The podcast was playing in the background, so, on a whim, I decided to ask ChatGPT whether it could describe The Hysteria Continues to me. After a little bit of additional prompting and coaxing, it eventually produced a fairly decent summary of the podcast, its contents and hosts. The only detail that threw me was one apparent fact about Erik. According to ChatGPT, Erik is also known as the Vern. As a relatively long-term listener at this point, I'm pretty sure I've heard every episode at least once, and I have no recollection whatsoever of Erik ever having been referred to as the Vern. What could it mean? Baffled and amused, I asked the AI to explain why Erik, aka, is the Vern. It simply replied that the Vern is a persona Erik uses when he is involved in discussions, reviews, analyses, particularly with the horror genre on Hysteria Continues podcast. Please could you shed some light on this matter? I always thought that Inga was Erik's alter ego, but now ChatGPT is telling me otherwise. The good people have the right to know who is Vern. Plentiful thanks for many hours of happy listening. Kind regards, Dr. Bobbles. So, Erik, do you have a theory why you are the Vern?
Well, I had a theory about because the Jerry O'Connell's character in Stand By Me is called Vern, and he's fat and a bit simple and gets bullied by the other kids. Not that I'm simple, but I am fat and I do get bullied. So I'm wondering if it's that, maybe. But you guys had other theories. I mean,
you had mentioned Stand By Me several times throughout the years, so maybe ChatGPT picked up on that. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
It's kind of creepy. Wow.
Yeah.
That is weird, though, isn't it? I mean, I couldn't see the only other Vern we could think of was like the one from is it
the Ernest movie? He's the unseen guy that Ernest always talks to. It's
right.
Like, you know what I mean, Vern?
Yeah, and also
that's all I could think of.
The small actor, wasn't it, from
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers, yeah. So it could be an amalgamation of any of those, Erik. But I mean, I wouldn't say you were simple.
No, we can start calling him the Vern. What do you think of the movie Vern?
Yeah, Vern is your new nickname. So yeah, that's yeah. Well,
could be the new Alan Dale joke.
Well, it would be. I'm surprised that it didn't mention it because Inga was something that came up a lot. Although I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I don't understand how all this chat. I don't understand how it works really. I mean, I do understand to some degree, but presumably it hasn't listened to every single episode of The Hysteria Continues. Although bizarrely, I forgot to mention actually. In the recently seen, I just put up a review of an Egyptian slasher movie called Camp from 2006. And I added a very small clip of it for less than a minute on Facebook, and within seconds it came up with a copyright strike. And I don't understand how they do that. And I think it's fine under fair usage because literally I'm just promoting the movie, and it's just a little tiny bit of the movie. It's not the whole thing or anything like that. It's more like less than a trailer. But because Facebook's such an arse sometimes, they threaten with deleting the account. And I know that obviously has happened to people like Meep, have had their Facebook page disabled for no discernible reason. So I don't want to risk it. But yeah, so I don't understand how all that works. I mean, if anyone probably does, it's probably you, Joseph, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I don't really know, but it's weird because like I could understand them flagging something, say like you put up a minute's worth of screen time for something like Titanic, but for something like Camp, which no one has really ever heard of, how it catches that, I don't know.
No, it's it's strange, isn't it? That's why I do wonder if ChatGPT has listened to every episode of The Hysteria Continues, and maybe there's a comedian called Vern.
Maybe there is. Although I have just, you might have heard me typing there in the background. I did just type into ChatGPT, who is Erik from The Hysteria Continues, and it came back with this line: Erik provides listeners with entertaining and informative content related to the horror genre.
You've done that, Erik. It kind of reminds me of, it just reminded me of why AI was bad, like in Terminator 2.
Maybe they're time traveling back to kill us all. I don't know.
Okay, I'll see what it says. Who is Justin Kurzweil?
Oh no.
Oh dear.
He's been involved in the horror community for many years and is well respected among fans for his insights and contributions to the genre. Are you typing this, Justin?
No.
Maybe we are just AI and we don't know it. We're not aware.
Yeah, maybe we're living in a simulation.
Maybe we are.
Mind you, if we were, I would think the jokes would be funnier.
Hey, how rude. If we were living in a simulation, I don't think I'd be living in a crappy apartment in Dublin.
I'll give AI this much. At least they're somewhat accurate, unlike the people who like spam us recently. Like one person sent in a message says, "Dear the." Like they didn't even say The Hysteria Continues. Dear the. So we're the now.
Yeah, our surname is Hysteria Continues.
Yeah.
We get so much spam. It's unbelievable. People trying to, wanting us to advertise all sorts of strange things, which is all scams anyway. But we also have one more. So Nathan, I think you've got one to read out here.
I do. This says, Wario Bava here. Two things. Firstly, has there ever been a Western slasher? I imagine a spaghetti Western slasher would be awesome. Furthermore, have there been any period slashers like a Victorian or World War I slasher in the trenches? That would be great too. Secondly, we watched Blood Rage recently. When Karen shoved the baby into the toilet cupboard, I remembered Paul Rudd does the same in Halloween 6. Has this happened in any other slashers? Would Halloween Ends have been a better movie had they put a baby in a toilet cupboard? Anyway, I hope you are all well. Lots of love from the Bava family.
Excellent. Always good to hear from you, the Bava family.
How about Scream from 1981? Could be a Western slasher.
Yeah, but is there any scenes of somebody putting a baby into a toilet cupboard?
In Scream?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
No.
The one that came to mind for me, there's a 70s movie called is it called A Knife for the Ladies, which is a Western slasher movie, which is kind of supposed to be a bit giallo-esque. I've not seen it, but it was put out on video in the UK, and I think it was kind of one of the ones that it was nearly banned, but apparently it's not very good and not very. It's kind of one. It's I have to look it up actually. A Knife for the Ladies. Have you heard of that?
No.
I should be careful while I type in because that sounds.
I like how all this feedback is making us having to use Google so much today.
I'm sure it's called A Knife for the Ladies, but I say I don't want to put knowing. I'll probably get the FBI or whatever the Spanish equivalent is if I put A Knife for the Ladies into Google.
Well, while you're doing that, I asked ChatGPT to tell me a joke about a goth, and it had this response: Why did the goth bring a ladder to the cemetery? Because they heard the plot was 6 feet deep, but they wanted to dig even deeper for some underground music. I don't think we have anything to fear from AI.
That was kind of convoluted. It reminds me a lot of your jokes.
Hey,
yeah, maybe AI has been trawling Hysteria Continues. That's why the joke's so bad.
Oh, poor Vern.
But there is a Western called A Knife for the Ladies, and it says a mutilating knife-wielding killer haunts a small southwest desert town of Mescal. And I think it's so it's kind of like cross between Jack the Ripper and a Western. So that's maybe, I haven't seen it, but if you were looking for one, then that's one to look out for. There's been a few of those 80s Western horror movies, wasn't there? The
Ghost Town,
wasn't it? Yeah. So excellent. Well, anyway, thank you for everyone who's written in. And thank you for the song. So so as we say, we always love hearing from you. So it gives us plenty of talking points, and also good to hear what you think. So keep them coming, as it were. And so what are we covering next time, Erik?
Next time we are covering the classic. I can't really say if it's a classic or not because I haven't seen it in about 20 years, but Honeymoon Horror.
Oh, back to the 80s, the classic era.
And we're hoping to be joined by Bill Ackerman, the wonderful Bill Ackerman.
Excellent. I haven't seen that for a long time either. It's one of those ones lost in action, isn't it? Slash movie. It's ever been put out on disc. So if the good people at all those various labels are listening, you know what to do. So we should look forward to that and having Bill back on the show. Be great. So we're going to play out with "Love My Way" by the Psychedelic Furs.
Love it.
Great song.
Yeah. So. Excellent. Well, okay. Well, we'll catch you next time on Hysteria Continues. So, I could have done Love Is in the Air, but let's go for Psychedelic Furs instead. Let's keep the love going, and we'll catch you next time on Hysteria Continues. So, thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Goodbye.
So long.
Bye.
Love my way, it's a new